All right, so get ready for a deep dive into the world of Oscar De La Hoya. You wanted the inside scoop on his journey from East LA to boxing legend. And we've got articles, bios, the whole shebang. What's really interesting to me is how he managed to become this iconic golden boy
Yeah.
while also facing some pretty tough personal challenges.
Yeah, it's that contrast that makes his story so compelling. It's not just about wins and losses in the ring. It's about the man behind the gloves, the ambition, the cultural impact, and yeah, the bumps along the way.
Okay, so let's rewind to the beginning. De La Hoya's story starts in East LA. Born into a family where boxing wasn't just a sport, it was practically in their DNA. Both his grandfather and father were boxers.
And that early exposure really shaped him. Think about it, growing up surrounded by boxing, hearing those stories, witnessing the dedication and the grit, it almost becomes inevitable that you step into the ring yourself.
So it's not surprising that he started boxing young, right?
Yeah.
But over 200 amateur wins. That's not just stepping into the ring that's dominating it.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that even in those early fights, you can see glimpses of the style that would define his professional career. He was known for his speed, his precision, almost a surgeon with his punches rather than a brawler.
That's a good point. It wasn't just about brute force. There's a real artistry to his boxing. But, even golden boys have setbacks. He actually fought Shane Mosley twice as an amateur and lost both times.
Huh, those losses are fascinating because they foreshadow this epic rivalry that unfolds later in their professional careers. It's like a thread that runs through their stories, adding this extra layer of drama and tension.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if those early losses fueled his drive even more. Like,
Yeah.
I'll show you Mosley, just wait until we meet again in the pros.
That competitive spirit is definitely there. But before we get to the pro rivalries, we have to talk about the moment that launched De La Hoya into superstardom, the moment that truly made him the golden boy, the 1992 Barcelona Olympics.
Oh yeah, this is the stuff of legend, right? He's just 19 years old, carrying the weight of his mother's dying wish to win gold. You can't even imagine that kind of pressure.
It was a story that transcended sports. It was about fulfilling a promise, about honoring his family, and ultimately about achieving a dream against all odds. And he did it with such grace and power.
And his victory did more than just earn him a gold medal. It reignited America's passion for boxing. Suddenly, everyone was talking about this charismatic kid with the lightning-fast hands. He was more than just a boxer. He was a cultural phenomenon.
It was the perfect storm, the backstory, the talent, the charisma, and the timing. America was ready for a boxing hero, and De La Hoya stepped into that role perfectly. And that momentum from the Olympics, it carried right into his professional career. De La Hoya's pro debut was just a few months after Barcelona, and it was like watching a rocket take off.
Yeah, I bet the hype was unreal. Everyone wanted a piece of the golden boy.
Absolutely, and he didn't disappoint. He won his first world title, the WBO Super Featherweight Championship, in his 12th pro fight. That's unheard of for most boxers.
So he wasn't just winning, he was winning fast.
Yeah.
That must have put a lot of pressure on him to keep that streak alive.
There's always pressure when you're at the top, especially in a sport like boxing. But De La Hoya seemed to thrive on it. He kept racking up wins, moving up in weight class, collecting titles like they were going out of style, from lightweight to light welterweight. He was proving he could dominate in multiple divisions.
Okay, so we know he was winning a lot. But what about the actual fights? You mentioned his speed and precision, but boxing fans love those epic knockdown, drag-out battles.
Yeah.
Did De La Hoya deliver on that front?
Oh, absolutely. His fighting style might have been more about finesse than brute force, but that doesn't mean his fights weren't exciting. Take his fight against Julio Cesar Chavez in '96, for example.
Chavez, the Mexican legend,
Yeah.
must have been huge.
It was a clash of titans. Chavez was a brawler, a relentless pressure fighter. De La Hoya, on the other hand, used his speed and footwork to control the pace, picking his shots, frustrating Chavez. It ended in a somewhat controversial TKO due to cuts. But it was a defining victory for De La Hoya. He proved he could not only outbox a legend, but also take a punch.
That's a great example of how De La Hoya could adapt his style to his opponent.
Yeah.
It wasn't just one-size-fits-all boxing.
Right. And then you have the unification bout against Rafael Ruelas. That was a complete domination. De La Hoya knocked him down twice before the fight was stopped in the second round. It was a statement win, showing the world that he was a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, it sounds like De La Hoya was on an unstoppable roll at this point. But I know from the research we've got that there were also some controversial losses, fights that could have gone either way.
Yeah, those losses are almost as important to his story as the victories. They add this layer of complexity, the sense that even the golden boy wasn't invincible, and they fueled debate. make people question decisions, analyze styles, dissect every punch.
So let's talk about those. Which losses stand out as particularly significant or controversial?
Well, the split decision loss to Felix Trinidad in '99 is a big one. It was a back-and-forth battle, and many people, including De La Hoya, felt he'd done enough to win. The demand for a rematch was huge, but it never materialized.
Man, that's got to be frustrating for a fighter. To feel like you were robbed of a victory and then not get the chance to prove yourself in a rematch.
It adds to the mystique, though, right? It leaves people wondering, what if?
Totally. Okay, so what about the Shane Mosley fights? You mentioned their amateur bouts earlier. Did that rivalry continue into their professional careers?
Oh, yeah, it exploded in the pros. De La Hoya fought Mosley twice, losing both times, and both decisions were highly disputed. Later revelations about Mosley's steroid use only added to the controversy.
Well, that changes the whole narrative. It makes you think, would De La Hoya's legacy be different if those fights had gone the other way? Or if Mosley hadn't been using performance-enhancing drugs?
It's one of those what-ifs that boxing fans will debate forever. But even with those losses, De La Hoya achieved something remarkable. He became the first boxer to win titles in 6 weight divisions. Think about that. 6 different weight classes. 6 different styles of opponents. And he conquered them all.
That's a testament to his talent and his adaptability. He wasn't just a one-trick pony. He was a master of adjusting his game plan to whatever challenge he faced, which makes his knockout loss to Bernard Hopkins even more surprising. That was the first time De La Hoya had ever been knocked out in his career.
Yeah, that fight was brutal. Hopkins was a master strategist, and he exploited a weakness in De La Hoya's defense. It was a devastating loss, both physically and psychologically.
Did that loss mark a turning point in De La Hoya's career?
It definitely signaled a shift. He was 32 at the time, not old for a boxer, but he'd been fighting at the highest level for over a decade. The wear and tear starts to show.
But he didn't retire after the Hopkins fight, did he?
No. He came back with a vengeance, winning his 10th world title against Ricardo Mayorga. It was a vintage De La Hoya performance, showcasing his speed, accuracy, and ring generalship.
It's like he had something to prove, not just to his fans, but to himself.
And then, of course, there was the mega fight against Floyd Mayweather Jr. It was a clash of styles, a generational battle that captured the imagination of boxing fans worldwide.
Mayweather, the undefeated champion, the master of defense, that must have been an incredible matchup.
It was. De La Hoya was the aggressor pushing the pace, trying to break through Mayweather's guard. But Mayweather was too elusive, too technically sound. He won by split decision, further cementing his legacy as one of the greats.
And where does that leave De La Hoya?
De La Hoya's final fight, a loss to Manny Pacquiao in 2009, marked the end of an era. He retired at the age of 36, leaving behind a legacy that's both inspiring and complicated.
So we've seen De La Hoya rise to the top of the boxing world, facing triumphs and setbacks along the way. But as you mentioned earlier, his story extends beyond the ring. What's fascinating to me is that he started building his life after boxing, while he was still active in the sport.
Yeah, that's a key insight into De La Hoya's mindset. He was already thinking about the next chapter while still in the midst of this incredible boxing career. In 2002, he founded Golden Boy Promotions, a move that really showed his ambition and business savvy.
It's like he understood that a boxer's career, no matter how successful, has a limited lifespan. He wanted to create something that would last, something that would allow him to stay connected to the sport he loved.
And he did it in a big way. Golden Boy Promotions quickly became a major force in boxing, signing some of the biggest names in the sport, including fighters he'd previously faced in the ring, like Bernard Hopkins and Shane Mosley.
That's pretty remarkable. It takes a certain level of maturity and professionalism to put aside past rivalries and work together for the good of the business.
De La Hoya was never afraid to blur the lines between competition and collaboration. He understood that the boxing world was both a sport and a business, and he knew how to navigate both sides.
But Golden Boy Promotions was just one piece of the puzzle. De La Hoya's entrepreneurial spirit seemed to lead him in all sorts of directions. A clothing line, a Latin pop album, a reality TV show, even an autobiography. It's like he wanted to try everything.
It speaks to his restlessness,
Yeah.
his constant need for new challenges. Some ventures were more successful than others, but it shows a willingness to take risks and explore different aspects of his personality.
Yeah, and let's not forget his brief exploration of a 2020 presidential bid. What do you make of that? Was it a publicity stunt or a genuine desire to enter politics?
It definitely raised eyebrows. The 2020 election was already shaping up to be a historic one, and De La Hoya's potential candidacy added another layer of intrigue. whether he was serious about running or just testing the waters. It demonstrated his ambition and his desire to use his platform to influence the world beyond boxing.
Okay, so we've talked about De La Hoya's triumphs in the ring and his ventures outside of boxing. But there's another side to his story, a more personal side that's been marked by both joy and struggle.
De La Hoya's personal life has been very public, with high-profile relationships, including an engagement to Shanna Moakler and his marriage to Millie Couricher. But he's also been open about his struggles with substance abuse and the challenges he's faced.
It's a reminder that fame and fortune don't shield you from personal demons. In a way, it makes his accomplishments even more impressive. He achieves so much while battling these internal struggles.
Yeah, it adds a layer of humanity to his story. He's not just this untouchable icon.
Yeah.
He's a human being with flaws and vulnerabilities, just like the rest of us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I keep coming back to this question. What is Oscar De La Hoya's legacy? Is he a boxing legend, a successful businessman, a flawed individual, or all of the above?
Well, his legacy is complex and multifaceted, just like the man himself. There's no denying his impact on boxing. The Olympic gold class, the world titles in 6 weight classes, the mega fights that captivated millions. He brought a new level of excitement and athleticism to the sport.
But his personal struggles, his very public battles, they've also become part of his narrative. It's impossible to separate the two.
And that's what makes his story so compelling. It's a reminder that even those who seem to have it all can face challenges and setbacks. De La Hoya's journey is a testament to resilience, ambition, and the enduring power of the human spirit.
So where does Oscar De La Hoya go from here? Will we see him back in the boxing world in some capacity? Will he continue to pursue his business ventures? Or will he chart a new course altogether?
That's the beauty of it. We don't know. His story isn't over yet. There are still chapters to be written, and it's up to him to decide what direction his life will take.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of Oscar De La Hoya. We've covered a lot of ground from his early days in East LA to his rise as a boxing champion, his business ventures, and his personal journey. We hope you found it insightful, engaging, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
It's been a pleasure exploring this fascinating story with you. There's always more to discover, more layers to peel back, and that's what makes these deep dives so rewarding.
That's right. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the stories that matter.